Hey guys, it's Katie. Thanks for stopping by my channel. Tonight I'm gonna make some lentil pie. This is kind of like a shepherd's pie or a cottage pie, whatever you want to call it, but with lentils. So this is just plants the way that I'm doing it, and I'll show you some variations that if you want you can change it up a little bit, but it's really quick and easy and pretty cheap, and my family likes it. We're not normally a meatless family, except on Fridays, and this is one of the recipes that everybody likes. So I'm gonna put you down the counter, I'll show you what we got, and I'll give you some tips on things that you could change, and then we'll get started. So for lentils, I just use these. This is like a peanut butter jar. They don't come like this, they just come in a bag. And I think these are just the Goya ones. I get these at Aldi. Sometimes they're just called lentils. Sometimes they're called brown lentils or green lentils. They make like black lentils, beluga lentils. There's lots of different kinds of lentils, so they would all work, I think. I would not use like red lentils. They're a little bit different, but just like the cheap lentils. This is what I'm going to use instead of like ground meat. So for these, you don't need to soak them. All I'm going to do is like rinse them off and look through them, make sure there's no like bits of stone or anything like that. And that's all you have to do to get those prepped. I have a bunch of vegetables that I'm going to chop up. I'm going to start with carrots, onions, celery. That's like a basic start for a lot of recipes. And then I have some frozen peas and corn. If you wanted to just use frozen mixed vegetables, you could. I would still add an onion maybe. I also have some mushrooms. So I'm going to put some mushrooms in. I don't think I've ever put mushrooms in, but you can put pretty much anything that you have in the fridge that needs to be used up. I might go get some kale in the garden. And so like kale or spinach would be good in this, like zucchini would be good in this, eggplant, whatever you have in the fridge that needs to be used up. The only other vegetable I have is some potatoes. I'm just going to make a very simple mashed potato to put over the top. And I'm going to keep mine super simple, but if you have a favorite mashed potato recipe, by all means use what you know your family likes. And then other than that, I'm going to use a little bit of flour, and I have vegetable stock or whatever kind of stock that you want to use. So I'm gonna show you how I rinse and sort through the lentils. We'll get the potatoes started and we'll get rolling on dinner. Okay, and then I don't measure a lot of things. I just take a couple handfuls and I just kind of drop them into the strainer, and I look through them to make sure there's nothing that shouldn't be in there. Different people have different ways of doing this, and some people are more thorough and some people are less thorough. But I've definitely bit down on a rock before. Not from lentils, I don't think. Actually, I was at a restaurant one time and then another time here at my house. Let's see. So that looks good. Okay, so just out of curiosity, I measured them. It's about a cup. And then I'm just gonna put some cool water just to rinse any dust or anything off of them. Like I said, you don't need to soak them, but just this rinse water, they'll start to like pucker up. It does not take long. So put those to the side for now. I'm gonna get some water to boil for my potatoes. I'm actually gonna use my pressure cooker for the potatoes. And I'm just putting a little bit of water. I'm not covering them with water because I don't need to for the pressure cooker to work. Just need whatever your pressure cooker says it needs. Or just boil these on the stovetop. You know how to boil potatoes, right? And these are going to be mashed, so it doesn't really matter how they're cut as long as they're relatively even so that they cook. And I don't peel potatoes for hardly any. I would hardly ever. I've probably peeled potatoes twice in the last 2 decades. I just can't be bothered. So even for mashed potatoes, I don't peel them. If you want to peel them, be my guest. So you can see there's just a little bit of water in there. And I actually got a new stove this afternoon. I have never used this stove before, so we'll figure this out together. Maybe like this. I don't even think I need... Aha! Alright, and because there's not a lot of water in that, it will come to pressure pretty quickly, and then it will actually be done before I need it. Probably 8-10 minutes, something like that. And then I'm going to chop up the rest of my vegetables. So this is a tip that I think I've shared before, but I have this large measuring cup. It's a 2-quart, 8-cup measuring cup. And I like this. I like when I'm making like a soup or a stew, something that sometimes gets out of hand. I keep adding a little of this, a little of that. Next thing you know, you have 5 gallons of soup. If I use this, as I'm chopping vegetables, I can clearly see when things are getting out of hand before they get out of hand. It is also, I originally started doing it to make sure I was adding enough vegetables to things, like bulking up things, but now it's kind of reined me in a little bit. And so I just put that to the side, and as I chop my vegetables, I'll put them in there, and then they'll all go in at once. I don't need to keep anything separate. See, I already have almost a quart of vegetables, and that's just with the carrots, onion, celery. Just a little bit of frozen vegetables in here. Okay, the pressure cooker is up to pressure. I'm going to turn it down. Some beautiful kale from the garden. So you can see it's full. You know, the kale will cook down, but gives you an idea of how much total veg you're going to need. So I have this shallow oven-proof pan. I'm going to do it all in this. If you wanted to do like in a saucepan, you can move it to a casserole to bake it. And then I'm just going to put a little oil to get the vegetables starting to soften. Some olive oil. And I love all the little layers of the vegetables. I'm just going to put them all in. You could start with like the onions and whatever. I'm just going to throw it all in. Some salt, pepper. Okay, I'm going to add some thyme because I usually add thyme when I make like beef stew or shepherd's pie. So I'm just going to get things starting to move around. And you see that's pretty full. But it's going to cook down a little bit, and then, well, we'll see if I need to change this. We'll see if we need to pour this to a larger casserole dish. Hopefully I can get it to work in this pan. I'm going to put some garlic from a jar. So this is just sizzling here a little bit. You see it's already cooked down a bit. Here's my lentils. I'm going to go ahead and put those in. And then I'm going to put a little bit of this stock in. Okay, so I'm going to put probably just, maybe like a third of that container. And I want it to be just under, like not quite covered, so just under that. We're going to add a little bit more, so, but that will get the lentils started to cook. Put a lid on this and just let it simmer until the lentils are tender. Turn that down a little bit. While that's simmering, I'm gonna make the mashed potatoes. Got some dairy-free margarine. And then I'm probably just gonna use some more of this vegetable stock. And just mash that together. I'm gonna season with salt and pepper. I don't have a potato masher, so I use this like cocktail muddler, but it does the job. You want to make it a little looser than you normally would for mashed potatoes. It'll make it easier to spread on the top of your lentil pie. And I don't worry too much about lumps. Lumps are fine with me. Some salt and pepper. And this is ready to set aside until we need it. Okay, so this has been simmering. I did add a little bit of water to top it up a little bit because the lentils, they swelled up. And I'm just gonna check and see if they're soft. I'm gonna put it in the oven too. Yeah, those are soft enough. I think I need to add a little bit more salt. So I'll go ahead and do that now. So in this is like one of those shaker containers. It's got one of these things in it. I put a couple tablespoons of flour. I'm gonna put some of this chicken stock in here. And I'm gonna shake it up. And that little insert helps like break it up so there's no lumps. And then I'm going to stir this in. I'll just use the rest of that. So that was the whole quart of the vegetable broth. And then I did add a little water too, so. Let it thicken up a little bit here on the stovetop. And really, I mean, you could serve this as like a beef stew replacement. And instead of making the mashed potatoes, just dice up the potatoes. And then you could do it all on the stovetop and it would be done right now. I'm just gonna let that come back to the simmer just so that the flour, I can see how thick the flour is gonna make this. And see if I need to add any more liquid to thin it out a little bit more. Also, now that the lentils are like they've soaked up as much liquid as they're probably going to soak up, it's a little easier to see sort of the lentil to vegetable ratio. So if it seemed a little overly lentil-y, I might just throw in a little bit of the extra like peas or corn or something like that. But this looks good for me, I think. Got my mashed potatoes here still. They did stiffen up a little bit while they were sitting here, so I'm just gonna put a little almond milk. It could be a little thicker because it's gonna, if this is thicker and this is thinner, it works a little better, but we're gonna go with it. Also, a mistake I made the last time is I had this a little too full, and so you see I have more than an inch here to the top, because when you put the potatoes in, some of it will displace, and anyway, I'm just gonna go ahead and put some blobs of mashed potato on top. So I think my stew mixture was a little thinner than it should be, but I'm just gonna throw it in the oven. It'll be fine. And I'll let you peek into my beautifully clean oven. This will be the cleanest it'll ever be from now on. So I've never used it before. Ooh. Stick it here. Okay, so I'm just gonna let that kind of get crusty on the top. It probably won't get that crusty since it's kind of all the gravy's gone on the top, but it's gonna stay in there and at least stay warm while I clean up, and then we'll eat. Ooh. Okay. Oh, it's kind of heavy. Okay. Guess it doesn't look like much, but it's really tasty. That's what we got. Alright, that's it. If you make the recipe, I'd love to know how you liked it and how you adjusted it. Leave me some comments down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Bye!